Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and in today's video, I'll be doing a rules refresher for the Dune Imperium expansion Bloodlines. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I'm all set up to teach you how to play the Bloodlines expansion of Dune Imperium. Now, I've got the Dune Imperium Uprising board here, but I will be going over both Uprising and the original Dune Imperium game. And I'll also be talking about combining Bloodlines with the previous expansions, Rise of Ix and Immortality. And I'll tell you what you need to know about solo mode as well. That's really my focus. I may talk a bit about two-player mode. Everything I say will be usable if you're playing at 3 to 4 players. The one thing I'm not going to cover are the 6-player mode details. If you're playing the opposite side of this board from Uprising, the 6-player mode, I don't know anything about that mode, so I'm not going to cover that part. But there is a lot to go over here. It's a pretty modular expansion, and there's a lot of cross compatibility stuff, so I will cover it in the most logical way that I can. But it is a little bit difficult to get your arms around, so bear with me. And then as usual, I do have chapter markers, so check those if you're looking for a specific part, if you've got a certain question. Otherwise, I'll try and start from the top. So let me give you an overview. Let me break down what exactly is in this expansion that can be modular. So first of all, there are some things that are compatible only with Dune Imperium Uprising, not with the original Dune Imperium. I'll talk about those, but that can include Imperium cards and Intrigue cards and even some of the leaders. Then there are components that are for Dune Imperium Uprising, but only compatible if playing with the CHOAM module from Uprising. So I'll cover what those components are. Then, as I said, Bloodlines adds new leaders. So some of those will be compatible. Most of them are compatible with the base game Dune Imperium, but not all of them. And some of them can be solo opponents in base game Imperium, so I'll talk about that as well. And then there are two big things that this expansion adds. The two main pieces are, one, the Sardaukar Commanders. So that can be applied to both the base game Dune Imperium and to Uprising, but it's a little bit different. Overall, very similar, but some of the setups a little bit different. And it's kind of taken for granted that that can be a module, that it can be modular. So in the rule book for Dune Imperium Bloodlines, they don't really separate out the Sardaukar Commanders. And just as an example, if you're familiar with some of the other content from this series, you may recognize this symbol means this card is for use with the CHOAM expansion. This symbol means it's for use with technologies. There is no symbol like that for Sardaukar, but I'll kind of go over how to separate that out if that's something you want to do. And then the other big module in this Bloodlines expansion is the technologies, which are similar but different from the technologies in Rise of Ix. And you can kind of mix the two together if that's something you want to do, so I'll be covering that as well. And so to start off with, there are 17 of these Imperium cards that you will always use no matter what. No matter what base game you're using, no matter what modules you want to use, these 17 are compatible with everything. I'm not going to show all 17, but I will specifically call out, as we get into the other sections, things that are not compatible. And on these top two cards, I just want to show you a couple of new concepts or maybe new concepts. So this one here is the combat symbol, so you'll recognize it from combat spaces. If you know how to play Dune Imperium Uprising, if you know how to play Dune Imperium Immortality, if you know the Immortality expansion, then this has already been introduced, but in case you haven't seen that before, when that symbol is activated, you treat your turn as if you've gone to a combat space. So in this case, this one's pretty interesting because it's on the reveal turn. You could trash this card, and then it's as if you've gone to a combat space. You could deploy more troops to the conflict that way. You won't always see it in the reveal turn box. It could be in the agent box. So it could allow you to send, perhaps it'll be on one of these green pentagon cards. So maybe you get to send your agent here and get some troops and treat it as a combat space and push them into combat. So that's kind of neat. The other thing you'll see is this. It says command, and then beneath it, it has 6 and then a plus, persuasion. So command is a new concept, but it's not a very difficult one. So this one does apply to really just the reveal turn. And so this card is saying you get 1 persuasion on the reveal turn, And if you have 6 or more persuasion, then you also get this benefit. So in this case, 3 Solari and trash this card. So whenever the command icon is used here, at least to date, it's always with 6 or more persuasion. It's never a different number. It's never like command 5 or more, command 7 or more. It's always 6 or more. So if you've got enough persuasion, then you trigger whatever it says. And then in addition to those Imperium cards, there are some more Intrigue cards that you will always add no matter what version of the game you're playing. And there are 8 of those. And so again, I'm not going to go over all 8 of these, but I'll tell you specifically which ones to take out if you're not using certain modules. So that's one thing to start off with, is just new cards in the game. So if you are playing Dune Imperium Uprising as opposed to base game Dune Imperium, here are some things that you will also add in every time. So we've got some of these Imperium cards. Let's just lay them out here. 1, 2, 3. There's 2 copies of this one. And then these 2. All of these cards will be used every time. That is, if you are playing with Uprising. If you're playing base game Dune Imperium, do not include these. So you can see these are going to involve spies or sandworms, spy locations. This one's got spies. This one's got spies. So these are mechanics that are not in base game Dune Imperium. So these will not be included if you are playing the original game, but just always include them if you are playing Uprising. Likewise, we've got some Intrigue cards. There are 5 of those that you want to remove: False Orders, Grasp Arrakis, Insider Information, Ripples in the Sand, and Sleeper Unit. And so we've got the spy symbol here: spy, sandworms, spies. And this one is talking about flipping face-up conflict cards, which is not something that exists in base game Dune Imperium, but is a part of Uprising. And so that is a good segue into the conflict cards. There are 2 new conflict cards with Bloodlines, a conflict level 1 and a conflict level 2. You will randomly shuffle these in, and you may or may not see them if you are playing with Uprising only, because they both have these question mark battle icons, and then this one also has the deep cover spy icon. So if you're playing with Dune Imperium Uprising, shuffle these 2 conflict cards into the stack, and you may or may not see them. But if you are playing with base game Dune Imperium, do not include either of them. And then one quick clarification on these 2 new conflict cards. If you are playing with Dune Imperium Uprising, if you happen to get 2 cards with question marks, they do match with each other. But again, that can only be triggered during the end game. So you are not required to match them with the other 3 symbols: the ornithopters, the desert mouse, or the crysknife. And so the next thing you might add is the additional components for the CHOAM module. So this is only going to be something you use if you're playing the Uprising version, not the original base game. If you're playing the base game, this will be excluded. But if you're playing Uprising and using the CHOAM module, then you will include the following components. So first, there are 8 new contracts, and I'll go over a couple of them. So one is this one: earn any alliance. This contract is completed after you gain the contract. If you earn one of the alliance tokens, then you complete the contract. But as usual, it can't be triggered by if you gain this contract and you already have an alliance. It's the next time you gain an alliance token, then you complete that contract. This one is immediate, but it does, and it says this right on there, it requires that you have an Intrigue card. So when you grab this, you trash an Intrigue card to then gain a new Intrigue card and draw a card. If you have no Intrigue cards, then you cannot take this immediate one. And you do have to pay the Intrigue card to get the benefit. And then there's one new icon here as well. This is, you see the spy icon. We've got the spies over here, but here's a spy with like another gold spy behind it. That is called the spy with deep cover. And so what that allows you to do is place a spy on an observation post that already has an opponent's spy on it. Now you can also place your spy just on any other observation post, but if there's an observation post you want that has an opponent's spy, you may ignore it. You cannot double up, put 2 of your spies on the same observation post. Now this effect can be triggered multiple times so that, perhaps the red player is here at Imperial Basin, and then the blue player gets this effect and they put a spy on Imperial Basin as well. Now there's 2 there. Now it's the green player's turn. If they get that effect, well, they can put one on Imperial Basin. Then again, if it comes back around to red and they get that effect, they cannot place one there because they've already got one there. So you will always block yourself. So that's kind of typical of some of the other game effects. Now, if you're playing with rivals, the rival can place a spy with deep cover as well. When it does that, it just uses it places a spy on the faction observation post of the first available faction on its priority list at the bottom of its rival card, and it ignores any opponent's spies, just like normal. And there are some in-game effects that allow spies to be moved as well. So if you're ever making a rival move their spy, they'll just treat it like they were placing a new spy according to its priority list, ignoring the observation post that you're moving from, of course. And if all other faction observation posts are full, then the spy is lost. Yeah, now you can put your spies on observation posts that are occupied by enemy spies. So those are the 8 new contracts with some of the details worth pointing out. Now, if you're playing with the CHOAM module, you're also going to need one more intrigue card. It's a plot card. It's called Coercive Negotiation. You can see it's got the CHOAM icon there. You're only going to shuffle this into the deck when playing with CHOAM because this involves revealing contracts. And then there are 5 Imperium cards that you will only use when playing with the CHOAM module. Again, they all have the CHOAM module icon in the top left corner. And as you can see, these 3 have the contract icon on it. This one says complete one of your contracts. This one says if you completed a contract this turn. So these are all dealing with contracts. So if you're playing with CHOAM, you will shuffle all these in. If you are not playing with CHOAM, including if you're playing base game Dune Imperium only, then you will exclude obviously the contracts and this intrigue card and these 5 Imperium cards. So that's not too bad. Pretty straightforward. Let's grab this stuff and let's take a look at the new leaders with Dune Imperium Bloodlines. So I'm going to lay all these out on the board so that you can see them. And some of them are going to have some leader-specific components. Some of them will only be compatible with certain things. So we'll talk about all of that. But here are the 9 new leaders. And I think the easiest thing to do is just go through them one at a time. So first we've got Duncan Idaho. Duncan Idaho you can use obviously in Dune Imperium Uprising, but also in base game Dune Imperium. Either way is fine, but cannot be used as a solo rival in Dune Imperium. But if you're playing solo Dune Imperium Uprising, or I suppose 2-player Dune Imperium Uprising, there is a rival card for Duncan Idaho. Next up is Chani. Now, Chani can be used also in base game Dune Imperium or in Dune Imperium Uprising. And you can see here that could be played in a 6-player game as well, although I don't know much about it. And then there's a cube that comes with this game and you just place it on the track and you advance down the track following this rule here. So it says anytime you retreat or lose any number of troops from the conflict, advance your tactics token that many spaces, earning the rewards as you reach them. So if you're playing a 1 to 4 player game, your cube is always starting here. You advance as you retreat or lose troops in the conflict. When you reach or pass this space, then you gain a spice. When you reach the water at the end, then you gain a water. And whenever you get to the end of the track, stop advancing it for this turn. And then when the turn is over, then you reset it back to where it starts. Now again, you can use Chani in Dune Imperium or in Dune Imperium Uprising. She cannot be a rival though in Dune Imperium. And if you're playing Uprising, she has her own rival card as well. The next leader over here is Peter de Vries. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It might be Vries. But he can be played in either base game Dune Imperium or Dune Imperium Uprising. And if you're playing Dune Imperium, then he can be used as a rival. He's fully compatible with no changes. And one thing that's interesting about this leader is he's got this custom deck of intrigue cards that he draws from. So these are going to get shuffled up. These are called twisted intrigue cards. You can see it's got a picture of him on the cards. So you're going to keep this deck shuffled but nearby when you start. And if you are playing base game Dune Imperium and playing as this leader, all of these cards are compatible. So that's nice. And if you're using rivals in Uprising, there is a card for Peter as well. Next up is Esmar Tuek. Now, this one's pretty interesting. Whenever a human player plays with this leader, then you add this tile to the board, and it is a new board space that people can go to. And you can see it is a maker space, so it will acquire spice if people are not going there. And so that's a pretty interesting interaction. Now, Esmar Tuek is compatible with both Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising, and he may also be used as a rival with base Dune Imperium. But if he's being used as a rival, you do not place the board space. And then on his Signet Ring ability, the standard ability is place 1 bonus spice on this space or take 1 bonus spice from a maker board space. And because if the rival is this leader, you don't use this space, so the signet ring, you only have that bottom option for the rival. And then if you are playing Dune Imperium Uprising, there is no rival card for this opponent, so that is not an option with Uprising. Next up is Count Hasmir Fenring. This leader is only compatible with Dune Imperium Uprising because he has this spy with deep cover icon on his signet ring ability, so you cannot use him with base game Dune Imperium because that ability doesn't exist. But if you're using rivals, there is a rival card for Dune Imperium Uprising for this leader. The next leader is Steersman Yakurin. I don't know how that's pronounced, but I am absolutely certain that whatever just came out of my mouth was not it. But he's pretty interesting, this Spacing Guild guy. This leader is compatible with both Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising with a small caveat. So this one, kind of like Peter up here, has his own special deck of cards. These are navigation cards, and you shuffle them and draw 5 at the start of the game. And of the 5, you pick 4 and you place them face down in front of you. You see numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 by your leader card. And then each time you get to the number 2 space on any of the factions, then you flip over the next card in the line and gain the bonus. And some of them are going to be dependent on what slot they're in or what order that you advance on these faction tracks. So it's a pretty interesting mechanic. If you are playing Dune Uprising, then that's how it works. If you're playing with just the base Dune Imperium, there is one of these cards you need to remove, and there are no names on these cards, no labels or anything, but it is this one here that has the spy symbols on it because there's no spies in base Dune Imperium. So you'd remove just this one card, all the rest could stay. And then interestingly, I did not mention this, but this leader also does not have a signet ring card in their starting deck. So that's interesting too. And if you're playing Uprising, there is no rival card for this leader. Next up, we have Liat Keynes, or is it Kynes? I can never remember. But this leader has an ability that has to do with sandworms. So this one is not compatible with base game Dune Imperium, only Dune Imperium Uprising. And there is no rival card for this leader either. So I think that's all you need to know on that one. Next up is Gaius Helen Moyham. And again, she is compatible with only Dune Imperium Uprising because her ability here has to do with spies. And there are no spies in the original Dune Imperium. So Uprising only. And she does have a rival card, so you can play against her. And finally, we have Coda Odax of Ix. This leader is compatible with both the base game and Uprising so long as you are playing with a technology module. So that could either be the technology module that comes with the Bloodlines expansion, or you could be playing without the rest of the Bloodline stuff, but with Rise of Ix, and that would work too. So as long as you've got technologies in the game one way or another, you can play with this leader. She cannot be used as a rival in base game Dune Imperium though, but if you're playing Uprising, there is a rival card. So let me go over these one more time just to summarize. So here's the 9 leaders from Bloodlines. If you are playing base game Dune Imperium, you can play with Duncan Idaho, Chani, Peter DeVries, Esmar Tuek, Steersman Yurkun, as long as you remove this one card that's showing here, or Coda Odax of Ix, so long as you are playing any variant of the game that includes technologies. Now, if you're playing base game Dune Imperium and you want to use any of these as rivals, you can use Peter DeVries and you can use Esmar Tuek, but if you use Tuek, he does not place this board space down. And then as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 can be used as rivals in Uprising, while Coda Odax of Ix, of course, has to be used with technologies again. So I know that was a lot, but let me clear this away and then we will move past the leaders. All right, so one other thing real quick on leaders is the House Hagal cards. I didn't talk about that if you're playing solo or 2-player. So if one of the human players is Esmar Tuek, then you will add these two Tuek's Siege House Hagal cards to the deck. So that gives the rival some ability to go to that new board space. And then if you're playing with any form of technology modules, and then there are these other House Hagal cards that involve technologies, I'll save that for the technology section. But I think the next thing I want to cover are the Sardaukar Commanders. And so this is a module that can be included with either Uprising or base game Dune Imperium. You are going to need either these black wooden cubes or you can use the minis. Both are included with the Bloodlines expansion, but I'll use the cubes here. So let's talk about where we put these. We're going to put one of these on the Sardaukar space, one at Dutiful Service, one at Deliver Supplies, one goes to High Council, one is at Gather Support, One is always off to the side. I'll talk about that. And then if you are playing a 4-player game only, you place one at Assembly Hall. If it is not a 4-player game, then you remove this one from the game. Now, if you're playing base game Dune Imperium, the spaces are going to be very similar. Let me show you what that looks like real quick. But real quickly here is the top half of the base game Dune Imperium map. Maybe we'll just put it like that. And so if you're playing on this board, then you're going to place your Sardaukars on Conspire, Wealth, Fold Space, High Council, Rally Troops, which is really analogous with Gather Support, but they've swapped the location of Swordmaster on the 2 maps. And you'll still put one off to the side. And in a 4-player game only, you will add one to the Hall of Oratory. Otherwise, that one will be removed from the game. These on High Council, let me slide this over, but the Rally Troop space is gone. So you will place another Sardaukar Commander here on Dreadnought. And then if and only if you're playing a 4-player game, you'll add one to Tech Negotiation. Otherwise, this one goes back to the box. Let's see how that looks over here. If you want to use Ix, I think you fold this over this way and just use the shipping track then. If you're up on this top board, so we're on Sardaukar, Dutiful Service, Deliver Supplies, High Council is still there, and then same thing, you'll put one on Dreadnought, and if and only if it's a 4-player game, you add Tech Negotiation. Otherwise, you remove it. But let's go back and simplify a little bit. So we'll assume we're playing any player count but 4. We're playing 1, 2, or 3 players. All the rest of this module will be the same for base game Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising, so we'll just stick with this board. But you're going to add these 3 cards to the Imperium deck, 2 copies of Quash Rebellion, because they deal with Sardaukar Commanders in the reveal part, and then 1 copy of this Sardaukar Standard. And this is the card that interacts with the 1 extra Sardaukar here. It says, when this card is trashed, acquire and recruit the Sardaukar Commander in the bank. That is this one that is off to the side. So these 2 pair together. So should this card happen to come out and somebody gets it and trashes it, then they can gain this Sardaukar here. So we will put these 3 cards away now. And when playing with Sardaukar Commanders, you're also going to add these 2 Intrigue cards, Honor Guard and Seize Production. And now is as good a time as any to point out that the bottom right-hand corner of all of the Bloodlines cards has 4 little dots in it. That's how you can identify the cards from this expansion. Then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to shuffle and make a stack of these Sardaukar Commander skills. So there are these 7 skills. There are 2 copies of each, so 14 total skill tokens here. And if you are playing with base game Dune Imperium, you are going to remove just both copies of Fierce. You will play with the other 12. Otherwise, if you're playing Uprising, you use them all. And that's again because Fierce involves sandworms, and that's a mechanic that doesn't exist in Dune Imperium. But you're going to shuffle up the 12 or 14 tokens, depending on which game you're playing, and then you're going to reveal the top 4, and you're going to have a little market of 4 different available tokens that can be acquired, and you'll just keep the stack nearby. And so now let's get into how these troops work. So whenever you go to one of the board spaces that has one of these Sardaukar troops on it, or when you trash that 1 card that goes with this troop over here, then you have the option to acquire that Sardaukar Commander. So to acquire them, you have to pay 2 Solari, and then you move them directly to your garrison. That is now your Sardaukar Commander. At the same time, you look at, let's just say this is what's available. You look at the 4 different Sardaukar abilities that are available, and you select one of them. So let's say we take this one, and then after we take it, we reveal a new one. Now, we may only have 1 copy of each of the skills. You may not have multiple copies of any given skill. And then from then on, you kind of treat the Sardaukar Commander like any other troop. They are considered a troop. So for any game effects that talk about removing troops or retreating troops, Sardaukar Commander is a troop, and you can deploy them into conflict just like any other troop. But the difference is whenever you have a Sardaukar Commander in combat, 1, they're worth 2 combat strength, just like any other troop. But also, as long as you have at least 1 in combat, all of your tokens, whatever you've got in your supply, all of your tokens are now active. So that would mean on my reveal turn, if I've got at least one Sardaukar commander in the combat, I can gain a spice. And this one says if I have an agent on one of these Landsrad board spaces, then I gain 2 sword icons. Now, it doesn't matter how many Sardaukar commanders you have in combat, you only trigger these once. So you just need 1 or more, and they're triggered. If you don't have any in combat, then you ignore them. They're not triggered. Now, after combat, these will return to your supply just like any other troops. And then in the future, maximum of once per turn, you may spend 2 Solari to recruit a Sardaukar commander from your supply to your garrison. So it doesn't have to have this icon anywhere, and in fact, that icon is only for regular troops, but once per turn, you can spend 2 Solari and acquire a Sardaukar from your supply to your garrison. You may not do that more than once per turn. But if your turn happens to involve that combat symbol, whether you've sent an agent to a combat board space or if you have revealed a combat symbol on one of your cards, for example, on a reveal turn, we looked at that earlier, then your Sardaukar commanders in your garrison do count as troops for the purposes of deploying up to 2 troops from your garrison, or up to 2 units from your garrison, I should say. So that can be pretty interesting. You've got a little bit of ability to, to sort of customize what it is your Sardaukar commanders are doing with these various tokens. And then they make some of these board spaces a little bit more appealing, a little bit more interesting. You're kind of racing to get these Sardaukar commanders, and it gives you a different use for Solari, not just in the beginning of the game because it's a little bit of a race, but throughout the game as well, because a lot of times you just go to Swordmaster and you go to High Council and then you're not really using Solari very much. But now you can continue to use Solari because you can spend 2 Solari on a turn to recruit a commander from your supply to your garrison. So it's got a little more use throughout the game, and I think that's a nice addition. Now, let's say you're playing with rivals real quick. We'll cover that. If you are playing with streamlined rivals, which is really just for 2-player, there's a couple of them and they're just introduced in Uprising. They're not in the base game. But if you are playing with the streamlined rivals, those are the ones that cannot earn any victory points, cannot win the game. Then whenever the rival sends an agent to a board space that has a Sardaukar commander, they remove the commander from the game board and just return it to the box. It's just gone. Now, if you are not using Streamline Rivals, so that means you're playing any other version of Dune Imperium or Dune Imperium Uprising where you have rivals. This is really going to be every solo game or 2-player games where you're not using Streamline Rivals. Then, when a rival sends an agent to a board space that has a Sardaukar commander, if they've got at least 2 Solari, they spend them and acquire and recruit the commander. Now, rivals never gain these skills, but instead, their Sardaukar commanders are worth 4 combat strength instead of 2. But at the end of a conflict, any Sardaukar commanders used by a rival get returned to the game box. They don't go back to their supply. So they're one-time use only, but they're twice as strong. And then whenever a rival can deploy a troop into the conflict, it'll always deploy Sardaukar commander before a regular troop. Oh, and then when a rival must lose a troop, it'll always choose to lose a regular troop before losing a Sardaukar commander. So that kind of makes sense. And it'll always lose a troop from its garrison if possible before losing one from the conflict. So that's just another small case that might come up. So hopefully that all made sense. Kind of makes sense to me. So that is it for Sardaukar Commanders. If you got questions about that, let me know in the comments, but I am going to move on. So the other big module from Bloodlines is a tech module. It's this Ixian Embassy. So we've got this little sideboard, and if you've played Rise of Ix, this is all going to be very familiar. So we've got these 18 technology tiles, and these are all unique from the Rise of Ix ones. And so we're going to take these. If we are playing with Bloodlines, which obviously we are, there's 15 you'll always use, and then there's one that is only used when playing Uprising with the CHOAM module, and that is CHOAM Transports. It's got the CHOAM symbol on it. So if you're using CHOAM, include this. If you're not using CHOAM, including if you're playing base game Dune Imperium, then you remove this. Otherwise, you take whatever tiles you're using and you separate them out into 3 stacks as evenly as possible. If you're using them all, that's going to be 6 in a stack. I don't know that that's what I just did, but that's okay. And then you'll reveal the top tech from each stack, like so. Okay, and so these generally give persistent abilities that you're purchasing with Spice. In order to acquire these, as it says at the top here, you need to be at any of these green pentagon board spaces. So that gives you another use to go to the Landsrad Council. That's kind of nice. It makes those spaces more appealing. So if you're at any of those spaces, you may acquire one of these techs, and the cost, which is in Spice, is in the top left corner. And then this is kind of interesting. It says if you have a High Council seat, so if your marker is on one of these spaces, then you get a 1 Spice discount, and that is permanent. So you can choose from any of the face-up technology tiles that are there and that you can afford, and you acquire it. And then most of these will have some sort of instantaneous ability on the left, and then generally some sort of ongoing ability on the right. So this one says your signet ring has the following icons. So that's kind of nice. You can play your signet ring card and go to the factions. This one says on your reveal turn, you have 1 extra persuasion. And this one has this flip icon. So you use this on an agent turn, and you then flip it over to show that you've used it, and it gives you the combat icon. So you can go to any board space, you can go to espionage, flip this over, and treat it as a combat space and deploy a couple of troops. Then at the end of each round after the combat, like during the maker step, just flip any flipped over tech tiles back to their face-up side. And then after you've acquired a tech tile, flip over the next top one in the stack. Now, if any stack ever runs out, then you just have fewer options. You don't reshuffle the stacks or move things around at all. Now, when playing with the tech tiles or this Ixian Embassy, there are a couple cards we're going to add in. There are 2 copies of this Imperium card, Ixian Ambassador, and you can see it's got the tech symbol on it. So you can see in the on the reveal box here, it says if you have 2 or more tech tiles, then you can advance on any one faction. So that's kind of nice. And then we've got 2 intrigue cards as well, Rapid Engineering and Battlefield Research. And these would allow you to acquire tech at a 1 spice discount. Or if you have 3 or more tech tiles, this plot card allows you to advance on 2 different faction tracks. And this one allows you to gain a victory point in the end game. So you're going to add those cards in whenever playing with this module. Now, let me tell you how this works with a rival. It's going to be really the same as Rise of Ix. If you've played that, then you can sort of skip this part. But if you don't know, then in a 2-player game, the rivals always ignore technology, so you don't need to interact with it at all. If you are playing Bloodlines solo and you are not playing with any Rise of Ix stuff, but you're including this Ixian Embassy, you're going to add these 4 acquire tech cards to the House Hagal deck here. And when these come up, a rival acquires a tech at a 1 spice discount. Now, rivals will not acquire any techs until they already have their Swordmaster. After they have their Swordmaster, they will start hoarding spice, which means they will not spend 7 spice for a victory point until you get to level 3 of combat. So they'll start saving up so that they can buy some of these techs. Then once you get to the level 3 combats, then they'll start spending them for victory points. Now, rivals generally use techs the same way as you, but there's clarifications in the rulebook for specific cases. But they will only take techs that in the bottom right-hand corner have this little blue House Hagal icon. So let's flip a few of these over till we find one that doesn't. Like this one does not, so they will not acquire this one. Because it does not have the icon there. Now, if at any time, all 3 of these have no icon, then you're going to discard the tile from the largest stack and then replace it. And you will continue to do that until there's at least one with a House Hagal symbol on it. And if there's a tie for which stack is the biggest stack, then just start at the top, do this stack and then this one, and then prioritize that one last. All right, now let's talk about how we can combine this with the Rise of Ix game. So if you have Rise of Ix and you want to use this Ixian Embassy, you can take the Rise of Ix technologies and shuffle them in, and you're just going to have bigger stacks. But if you are not playing with the entirety of the Rise of Ix expansion, you will take these 2 technology tiles and remove them, troop transports and detonation devices, because this one interacts with the shipping track and this one interacts with dreadnoughts. And if you're not playing with the shipping track and dreadnoughts, then you're not going to use them. If you're adding the shipping track or adding dreadnoughts, if you're kind of mix and matching, then you would add the appropriate technology as needed. Otherwise, all of the Rise of Ix techs are compatible with both Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising, so you can make your own custom deck if you want of tiles, or you can just take them all, shuffle them in with the rest of these, and now you've got a bigger deck to play with. Now, if you prefer, you can instead play with the Planet Ix board here rather than the Ixian Embassy, and in that case, you would move the techs over here, and at this point, you are now choosing to include dreadnoughts as well. So you would remove this Ixian Embassy board. You would only be able to acquire text from over here. And so because this board is gone, you would not acquire text from the green spaces, and the High Council seat would not get you a 1 spice discount, but Tech Negotiator would be back in play. And if you're playing solo, again, if you're playing 2-player, just ignore this. The rival won't acquire text, but if you're playing solo, you will no longer, in this setup, you will no longer use these acquire tech House Hagal cards from the Bloodlines expansion. Instead, you'll remove these and you'll use the Dreadnought and Tech Negotiation cards that come with Rise of Ix that you would normally fold in with the other Ix stuff. And by golly, I think I have made it to the end. So hopefully that's everything you need to know to play Dune Imperium Bloodlines in whatever fashion you want to. You may have noticed I didn't mention anything about the Immortality expansion, and that's because that one just plays super nice with everything else, and you don't have to do anything special to use it, at least in terms of Bloodlines. But if you've got questions about anything, please let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to help you out. I know this is a little bit confusing because there are so many different combinations that you can come up with between the 2 base games and now 3 expansions. So I tried to cover everything that I could, but if you think I missed something or if you've got other questions, do let me know. Otherwise, please leave a like on this video, consider sharing it with somebody else who might find it useful, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet. That would be great. And stay tuned to the channel because I've got a solo playthrough with Uprising and Bloodlines coming out soon. And I'll remind you about a couple things. One, this video is sponsored by viewers, so if you would like to help make a contribution to the channel and make other videos like this possible, please head over to my Ko-fi page. There's a link in the description. I've had a few people do that lately. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And then also, other reminder, as part of my agreement with all of you who have sponsored this video, I will be doing a Dune Imperium giveaway contest. So pay attention to the channel as well if you want to maybe get some of these Dune Imperium base games or expansions. That is coming soon. But that's what I've got this time on Table for One. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great time playing Dune Imperium. See you in the next video.